A man who killed his own mother and uploaded a picture with her severed head. A former police officer who planned elaborate fantasies of kidnapping, torturing, and eating women on dark web forums. And a dark web administrator who ran an abuse and hurtcore video sharing platform. This is the disturbing internet criminals Iceberg. All people on this list have committed disturbing and dark crimes using the internet to lure victims, share their atrocities, or generally advance their criminal activity. We'll start with some of the more well-known cases and gradually move on to the more obscure and sinister. Without further ado, let's get straight into Tier 1, the well-known and infamous. Luca Magnotta. Luca Magnotta is infamous for his disturbing crimes, which he publicized online in 2012. Magnotta initially gained attention through videos depicting cruelty to animals, which he uploaded to obscure online forums. These videos sparked outrage and prompted online communities to try and identify him. His notoriety escalated quickly when he released a graphic video called One Lunatic, One Ice Pick, depicting the violent death of Jun Lin, a Chinese international student. The video was shared on shock websites, leading to widespread horror and a global manhunt. Magnotta's crimes were meticulously documented by himself as he deliberately posted evidence of his actions online, creating a macabre trail for internet users and law enforcement to follow. Online sleuths played a pivotal role in piecing together his identity long before his final crime, showing the internet's capacity to both expose and amplify harm. Magnotta fled Canada, sparking an international search that ended with his capture in Berlin. He was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment in Canada. This case became a significant example of the power of online communities in tracking criminal behavior, as many internet users had been trying to expose Magnotta for years. Documentaries and articles have since dissected his crimes, such as the extremely popular Don't F With Cats documentary on Netflix, offering insights into psychology and the disturbing intersection of violence and digital fame. Today, his story serves as a grim reminder of how dangerous individuals can exploit online platforms and evade accountability for a time. Ross Ulbright, or Dead Pirate Roberts. Ross Ulbright, operating under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, created and managed the Silk Road, a groundbreaking yet notorious dark web marketplace. Launched in 2011, the Silk Road utilized the Tor network and Bitcoin to enable anonymous transactions, becoming a hub for illegal trade ranging from drugs to counterfeit documents. The platform's reliance on encryption and digital currencies marked a new era of online crime, drawing the attention of law enforcement worldwide. Ulbright's activities were documented through his own communication on the site, as well as logs and evidence gathered by investigators. In 2013, the FBI arrested Ulbright in the San Francisco library, catching him logged in as the site's administrator. The shutdown of Silk Road marked a significant victory against cybercrime, but it also ignited debates about the ethics of anonymous marketplaces and online freedom. His case continues to spark discussions about privacy, the limits of law enforcement in cyberspace, and the unintended consequences of online innovation. Ulbright's creation of the Silk Road revolutionized the dark web, demonstrating both the potential and the perils of decentralized and anonymous networks. His platform's ability to facilitate millions of dollars in transactions anonymously showcased how the internet could be leveraged for illicit purposes on an unprecedented scale. Critics and supporters alike have debated whether his sentence was too harsh, with some arguing that the case set a troubling precedent for punishment related to digital platforms. The Silk Road's legacy persists in numerous copycat marketplaces that have arisen since its shutdown, highlighting the ongoing challenges of combating cybercrime. Today, the story of Ross Ulbright is often cited in discussions about digital rights, online anonymity, and the moral complexities of internet governance. Anthony Weiner. Anthony Weiner, a former U.S. congressman, became embroiled in multiple scandals revolving his misuse of social media and messaging apps. His first public controversy emerged in 2011 when he accidentally shared an explicit image on Twitter, drawing attention to his inappropriate online behavior. Attempts to rebuild his political career were undermined by further incidents, including a 2016 case involving explicit messages exchanged with a minor. These actions were documented through screenshots and digital evidence leaked online, which were later investigated by law enforcement. Weiner's repeated use of the internet not only destroyed his career, but also had broader implications. His involvement in the 2016 scandal led to the discovery of emails on his laptop that influenced the reopening of an investigation into Hillary Clinton, impacting the US presidential election. In 2017, he was sentenced to 21 months in prison. Today, Weiner's story serves as a warning about the misuse of online platforms and the far-reaching consequences of digital misconduct. Randy Stair, or Andrew Blaze. Randy Stair, also known online as Andrew Blaze, was a YouTuber who used the internet to broadcast his troubling thoughts and plans. Prior to committing a tragic workplace attack in 2017, Stair uploaded videos and manifestos revealing his struggles with mental health and his fascination with a cartoon character he believed would guide him to an afterlife. His YouTube content included animated videos and recorded monologues that painted a picture of his deteriorating mental state. These uploads were discovered posthumously, shedding light on the warning signs he had publicly shared. The internet played a central role in Stair's actions, as his online content served both as a form of expression and a method of amplifying his harmful intentions. Social media users and mental health experts have since analyzed his case to understand how similar tragedies can be prevented. Stair's extensive use of YouTube as a platform to articulate his beliefs and intentions highlighted the internet's dual role as a creative outlet and a dangerous echo chamber. His case brought attention to how vulnerable individuals can find validation for harmful ideologies online. It also underscored the importance of proactive interventions in online spaces, where warning signs often manifest before tragedies occur. Stair's content, though removed, continues to be studied by experts aiming to understand the intersection of digital platforms and mental health. His story serves as a reminder of the need for vigilance and support systems that can address troubling online behavior before it escalates into real-world harm. Austin Jones. Austin Jones, a former YouTuber and musician, exploited his online platform to manipulate underage fans. Known for his singing videos, Jones used social media and messaging apps to build a trusting relationship with his young audience. Between 2017 and 2019, he coerced some of his fans into sending inappropriate content, claiming it was part of helping him with his music career. His actions were uncovered when victims came forward and law enforcement obtained digital evidence of his misconduct. Jones's case highlighted the darker side of influencer culture, where trust can be weaponized against vulnerable fans. Arrested in 2017, he was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison in 2019. His downfall spurred conversations about the responsibilities of content creators and the need for stricter protection for young users online. Jones's ability to exploit his fans revealed the unique dangers of parasocial relationships cultivated through online platforms. His case illustrated how social media creates opportunities for predators to build trust and leverage their perceived authority for manipulation. The digital evidence against him showcased how technology can both facilitate abuse and serve as a critical tool in bringing predators to justice. Brandon Andrew Clark. In 2019, Brandon Andrew Clark used the internet to publicize a horrific act that shocked social media users worldwide. After an argument with Bianca Devins, a 17-year-old online influencer, Clark tragically took her life and uploaded graphic images of the crime to Instagram. The images quickly went viral, sparking widespread condemnation and calls for stricter content moderation on social media platforms. Clark's actions were heavily documented online, from his social media posts before and after the incident to the digital evidence gathered by law enforcement. The internet played a central role not only in amplifying the crime, but also in highlighting the dangers of parasocial relationships and the weaponization of digital platforms. Clark was arrested at the scene and later sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Today, Bianca Devins' legacy has inspired advocacy for improved online safety measures and a deeper understanding of the psychological impacts of internet violence. Moving on to Tier 2, the disturbing and documented. Peter Scully. Peter Scully is one of the most infamous figures in the dark web's history, primarily known for producing and distributing the video Daisy's Destruction. This video, which depicted heinous acts of abuse against minors, became a symbol of the extreme dangers lurking in the hidden corners of the internet. Scully's crimes extended beyond this infamous video. He orchestrated a network of exploitation, targeting vulnerable children in the Philippines. Under the guise of providing a shelter or financial assistance, he lured children and subjected them to unspeakable abuse, filming these acts to sell to an international audience on the dark web. He also trafficked these victims and forced them into creating new content, further amplifying his operation's depravity. Some children were deliberately subjected to increasingly cruel and sadistic abuse to satisfy the demands of his paying customers. Scully's operations came to light through tireless efforts of international law enforcement, who painstakingly pieced together his encrypted digital trail. His arrest in 2015 was the culmination of years of work involving multiple countries and agencies. The gruesome nature of his crimes shocked investigators, many of whom described the evidence as the worst they had ever encountered. Authorities rescued several victims, including a young girl found chained under a bed during a raid on one of his properties. Today, Scully serves a life sentence in the Philippines, with additional cases still pending. His case remains a chilling reminder of how the internet can be weaponized by predators to monetize exploitation and evade detection through technological means. His actions also underscore the urgent need for global collaboration in combating dark web crimes and improving cross-border surveillance technology. Stephen Port, or the Grindr Killer. Stephen Port, often referred to as the Grindr Killer, used the popular dating app Grindr as his hunting ground. Between 2014 and 2015, Port targeted young men, offering friendship or romantic interest to gain their trust. Once he invited them to his apartment, he drugged them with lethal doses of GHB, often without their knowledge, rendering them completely unconscious. He would then assault and ultimately kill his victims. Port dumped their bodies in public places near his home in London, often staging them with planted evidence, such as suicide notes, to mislead investigators. At least 4 men, Anthony Walgate, Gabriel Kovari, Daniel Whitworth, and Jack Taylor, fell victim to his calculated schemes. Despite clear patterns in the crimes, law enforcement failed to connect the deaths for some time, in part due to systemic biases and the lack of thorough investigation. Port's brazen behavior, including his attempts to inject himself into the investigations as a concerned citizen, highlighted his highly manipulative nature. The eventual unraveling of Port's crimes revealed the extent to which he exploited both his victims and the authorities. His reliance on Grindr showcased how dating apps, while fostering connections, can also be exploited by individuals with malicious intent. After his conviction in 2016, Port was sentenced to life in prison. His crimes sparked outrage and brought calls for better policing of serial patterns in violent crimes. Grindr also faced criticism for its lack of safety protocols, prompting platforms to reevaluate how they handle security and user protection. Today, his case serves as a stark warning about the dangers of online anonymity when exploited by predators. Philip Markoff, or the Craigslist Killer. Philip Markoff, known as the Craigslist Killer, exploited Craigslist's personal ads to target women offering escorts or massage services. In 2009, he arranged meetings in hotels under false pretenses, where he would ambush his victims. Armed with zip ties and a firearm, Markoff restrained the women and robbed them of cash and valuables. In one instance, his crimes escalated to murder when he fatally shot Julia Brisman after she resisted his attack in a Boston hotel room. Markoff's spree also included other victims who were left traumatized after being robbed and assaulted. Markoff's calculated use of Craigslist demonstrated how anonymity online can serve as a tool for predators. He meticulously planned his attacks, using disposable phones and fake email accounts to conceal his identity. Investigators connected him to the crimes through surveillance footage, phone records, and email exchanges with victims. The evidence painted a picture of a seemingly normal medical student living a double life as a violent criminal. Markov's case shocked the public and brought widespread attention to the dangers of engaging with strangers through online classified ads. Although he died by suicide in prison before his trial, the impact of his crimes prompted significant changes to platforms like Craigslist, which implemented stricter measures for verifying and monitoring personal ads to prevent similar incidents. His actions revealed the vulnerabilities in peer-to-peer online interactions and underscored the importance of vigilance when dealing with strangers on the internet. Markov's use of his education and meticulous planning also emphasized how seemingly ordinary individuals can harbor dangerous tendencies, making it critical for platforms to continuously adapt to evolving threats. Gilberto Valle, or the Cannibal Cop. Gilberto Valle, a former NYPD officer, gained notoriety as the Cannibal Cop after his wife discovered disturbing online activities on his computer. Valle frequented the dark web forums where he discussed elaborate fantasies of kidnapping, torturing, and eating women. He compiled detailed plans that included specific targets, methods of abduction, and horrifying descriptions of the acts he wished to commit. Valle's communications often involved other users who appeared to share similar fantasies, creating a disturbing subculture of individuals enabling each other's darkest thoughts. While Valle insisted that these were purely fictional and part of his fantasies, law enforcement found enough evidence to believe that he had serious intentions, including communications about potentially obtaining sedatives and restraints. Investigators uncovered hundreds of online exchanges and disturbing images that left them questioning how far Valle was willing to go. Although no physical harm was ever inflicted, Valle's trial raised critical questions about when a fantasy becomes a crime. His conviction was later overturned on appeal as the court ruled that his actions, while disturbing, did not constitute a tangible criminal act. Valle's case remains a controversial example of how the internet can serve as a space for people to explore dangerous ideas under the cover of anonymity. It also emphasized the legal and ethical dilemmas surrounding thought crimes and the limits of law enforcement in monitoring dark web activity. Today, Valle's case is frequently cited in debates about the fine line between free speech and actionable threats. Valle's chilling level of detail in his plans added to public unease, raising ongoing discussions about how society should address individuals who express violent fantasies online. Nico Jenkins. Nico Jenkins carried out a brutal killing spree in Nebraska in 2013, murdering 4 people in less than a month. Freshly released from prison, Jenkins used dating apps and other platforms to lure some of his victims, preying on their trust and vulnerability. His crimes were characterized by extreme violence, including shootings carried out execution style. Among his victims were Jorge Cajiga Ruiz and Juan Uribe Pena, lured under false pretenses, and Curtis Bradford, a former prison acquaintance. Jenkins claimed to be acting on the orders of a serpent god, presenting a disturbing mix of calculated malice and apparent delusion. Investigators uncovered his use of online tools to identify and target his victims, highlighting how such platforms can be weaponized by dangerous individuals. Jenkins was apprehended quickly, but his trial became a spectacle due to his bizarre courtroom behavior, including self-mutilation and erratic statements. Convicted and sentenced to death in 2014, his case remains a grim example of the intersection of mental health issues and the misuse of online resources in facilitating violent crimes. Jenkins's actions also raise questions about the adequacy of rehabilitation and the monitoring systems for recently released inmates, particularly those with histories of violent behavior. His case revealed significant gaps in parole systems, particularly concerning how released offenders are monitored in the digital age, underscoring the need for reform to prevent further tragedies. His claims of divine instruction also highlighted the complex interplay of untreated mental health issues with violent criminal behavior. Matthew Graham, or Lux. Matthew Graham, known online as Lux, was one of the most notorious administrators of the dark web, running multiple sites that specialized in hurtcore content. His forums were infamous for hosting and distributing some of the most extreme and exploitative material, including graphic videos and images of child abuse. Graham actively encouraged others to produce new content, fostering a network of abusers and viewers that spanned the globe. His involvement went beyond administration, as he often engaged with users to ensure their sites' success. Graham used advanced encryption methods and exploited gaps in international cybercrime laws to evade detection for years. He tailored his sites to evade detection, creating layers of obfuscation that made infiltration by law enforcement incredibly difficult. However, a coordinated effort by law enforcement agencies led to his arrest in Australia in 2014. Investigators described his case as one of the most disturbing they had ever encountered, citing the volume and severity of the content he facilitated. Today, Graham is serving a lengthy prison sentence, and his arrest marked a significant victory in the battle against dark web exploitation. His case underscores the critical need for technological innovation and international cooperation in dismantling such networks and bringing perpetrators to justice. Graham's actions serve as a stark reminder of the lengths predators will go to exploit technology and the importance of staying ahead in the fight against such crimes. His forums were ultimately dismantled, but their lingering effects, including copycat sites, show the ongoing challenges of eradicating deeply embedded criminal networks from the internet. Moving on to Tier 3, lesser known but sinister. Maury Travis. Maury Travis, a former hotel worker, gained infamy for videos he created and shared documenting the torture and murder of his victims. Between 2000 and 2002, Travis targeted women involved in sex work in the St. Louis area. He lured them to his home under false pretenses, offering them food, shelter, or drugs. Once inside, he subjected them to horrifying acts of violence, which he meticulously recorded on videotape. The tapes, discovered after his arrest, showed Travis mocking and terrorizing his victims, with one chillingly labeled "Your Wedding Day." In addition to physical torture, Travis psychologically manipulated his victims, forcing them to beg for their lives on camera before ultimately killing them. It is estimated that Travis killed between 12 and 17 women, though he claimed responsibility for as many as 20 in a taunting letter he sent to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch newspaper, describing himself as a homicidal maniac. Travis's crimes were uncovered when the FBI traced an online map link he had sent to the newspaper, leading them directly to his house. The discovery of his basement torture chamber, outfitted with chains, restraints, and blood-stained tools, shocked investigators and the public. His recordings provided an unfiltered view of his calculated and sadistic nature, with authorities describing the tapes as among the most harrowing evidence they had ever encountered. Travis's use of the internet to share his location and taunt authorities demonstrated a disturbing intersection of digital technology and violent crime. Authorities also uncovered documents where Travis detailed potential future victims and outlined elaborate plans for additional murders. Before he could stand trial, Travis took his own life in jail, leaving many questions unanswered. His case remains a chilling reminder of how predators can document and amplify their crimes through social media and how digital breadcrumbs can ultimately bring them to justice. Today, his recordings are used as evidence in criminology studies, illustrating the depths of depravity that individuals can reach when exploiting both technology and human vulnerability for their heinous purposes. David Sonbally. David Sonbally, responsible for the 2016 Munich shooting, used online platforms to prepare for his attack. Sonbally, a socially isolated teenager with a history of bullying, became obsessed with mass shootings and spent years researching them online. He frequented dark web forums and other websites where he procured an illegal Glock 17 pistol and ammunition. On July 22, 2016, Sonbally lured victims to a McDonald's by using a hacked Facebook account to post about a free food giveaway. Once there, he opened fire, killing 9 people and injuring 36 others, most of whom were also teenagers. Investigators discovered that Sonbali idolized past mass shooters and meticulously studied their methods, even timing his attack to coincide with the 5th anniversary of the Oslo and Utoya attacks. His internet history revealed searches for how to buy guns online and visits to forums that glorified violence. Sonbali's writings expressed deep resentment toward his peers and an admiration for those who had committed similar atrocities. He compiled notes and maps detailing his plans, showcasing a disturbing level of premeditation. Sonbali reportedly spent hours crafting fake social media accounts, curating violent images, and engaging with extremist forums where his ideas were reinforced by others. After the attack, he fled to a nearby parking garage where he took his own life. The Munich shooting sparked renewed debates about the role of online platforms in enabling radicalization and the urgent need for stricter regulation of illegal arms sales on the internet. It also highlighted the lack of resources available to detect and prevent such plans, despite clear digital warning signs. Sonbali's case remains a focal point in the studies of online radicalization and its devastating real-world consequences, prompting governments to consider stronger measures for monitoring extremist content. His actions have been analyzed in academic circles as a case study of how vulnerable individuals can become consumed by violent ideologies online, underscoring the need for early intervention in digital spaces. Elliot Rodger. Elliot Rodger became a widely known figure after carrying out the Isla Vista killings on May 23, 2014. Prior to his attack, Rodger uploaded a series of YouTube videos and authored a lengthy manifesto titled My Twisted World, detailing his grievances against women and society. He described his anger over perceived rejection by women and outlined his day of retribution, during which he planned to punish those he believed had wronged him. His digital content, particularly the manifesto, provided a chilling insight into his descent into violence. Rodgers' online activity showed he frequently visited forums and communities where misogynistic views were normalized, further fueling his resentment. On the day of the attack, Rodgers stabbed 3 roommates to death before embarking on a shooting spree near the University of California, Santa Barbara. He killed 3 more people and injured 14 others before taking his own life. Rodgers' YouTube videos and online presence painted a disturbing picture of entitlement and rage, which resonated with certain online communities that later hailed him as a figurehead. His actions brought attention to the toxic subcultures that can fester on the internet and their role in amplifying violent ideologies. The Isla Vista killings highlighted the need for early intervention when individuals expressed violent intentions online and raised questions about the responsibilities of platforms hosting such content. Rodgers' legacy has since been examined as a catalyst for debates on the impact of digital echo chambers in fostering extremist behavior and the societal need to address mental health issues in young people. His case continues to shape discussions about the dangerous intersections of internet culture, mental illness, and unchecked hate speech, with many calling for more comprehensive monitoring of online platforms. Matthew Falder. Matthew Falder, a Cambridge graduate and geophysics researcher, was exposed as one of the UK's most prolific online predators. Over the course of several years, Falder blackmailed his victims into producing exploitative and degrading content, which he then distributed on the dark web. Operating under the pseudonyms like Evil Mind, he targeted vulnerable individuals by pretending to be a modeling scout or offering emotional support. Once he obtained compromising material, he used it to coerce his victims into creating increasingly extreme content. His victims included teenagers and young adults, many of whom suffered severe psychological trauma. Some victims were coerced into self-harm or acts of public humiliation, intensifying the horror of his crimes. Falder's actions were uncovered in a groundbreaking operation by the UK's National Crime Agency, or NCA, which identified him after years of tracking his activities on dark web forums. Arrested in 2017, Falder was sentenced to 32 years in prison. His case revealed the dark web's role in enabling predators and underscored the importance of international cooperation in combating online exploitation. The sheer scale of his crimes shocked the public and highlighted the urgent need for stronger safeguards against online abuse. Falder's manipulation and psychological torment of his victims showcased the devastating power predators can wield in anonymous digital environments. Investigators uncovered over 100,000 explicit images connected to his network, many of which have been shared with like-minded offenders worldwide. His case continues to serve as a sobering example of how even highly educated individuals can exploit technology for heinous purposes, sparking ongoing conversations about the regulation of the dark web and the need for education on online safety. Joshua Davies. Joshua Davies, a teenager from Wales, used social media to publicly discuss his intentions to murder his girlfriend, Rebecca Allward, before ultimately carrying out the crime in 2010. Davies, who was just 16 at the time, posted to friends on platforms like Facebook about his plans, even jokingly offering a free breakfast to anyone who would encourage him to go through with it. On October 23, 2010, Davies lured Rebecca to a wooded area under the pretense of reconciliation, where he bludgeoned her to death with a rock. Investigators discovered extensive digital evidence of Davies' premeditation, including messages and posts that chillingly foreshadowed the attack. His callous attitude and lack of remorse were further revealed in his communications with friends after the murder, where he described the act in detail. Davies' trial highlighted the dangers of dismissing online threats and the role social media can play in facilitating and normalizing violent intentions. Convicted in 2011, he was sentenced to a minimum of 14 years in prison. The case brought significant attention to the need for monitoring online behavior and taking digital threats seriously, especially among young people. Davies' actions underscored how peer influence and unchecked conversations can embolden dangerous individuals, leading to irreversible consequences. Moving on to Tier 4, obscure but disturbing. Andrew E. Finch's swatter, or Tyler Barris. Tyler Barris orchestrated a swatting incident that resulted in the death of an innocent man, Andrew Finch, in 2017. Swatting, a dangerous hoax in which false emergency reports are made to prompt an armed police response, has become a troubling trend in online gaming communities. Barris, angered over a dispute during a Call of Duty match, placed a fraudulent 911 call claiming a hostage situation at Finch's address in Wichita, Kansas. Unbeknownst to Finch, who had no involvement in the dispute, armed police surrounded his home. When Finch stepped outside, an officer fatally shot him, mistaking his movements for a threat. The incident shocked the nation and highlighted the deadly consequences of swatting. Barris's digital trail revealed a history of similar hoaxes, as he had previously swatted multiple locations, including schools and government buildings. His actions caused significant emotional and financial harm, with police resources being wasted on false alarms. In one case, a school evacuation prompted by his swatting led to widespread panic among parents and students. Barris openly boasted about his swatting prowess on social media, showing a complete lack of remorse and even gaining a small following who celebrated his actions. Arrested shortly after Finch's death, Barris was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. During his trial, he admitted to enjoying the chaos his calls had created, underscoring his indifference to the potential consequences. Brandon Wilson. Brandon Wilson, known online as Famed God, gained notoriety for his cybercrimes involving identity theft and blackmail. Wilson infiltrated online accounts by exploiting stolen personal information, targeting both individuals and high-profile victims, including celebrities and content creators. Once he gained access to sensitive data, Wilson used it to blackmail his victims, threatening to release private photos or information unless they complied with his demands. His crimes extended to hacking social media platforms, email accounts, and even financial systems, leveraging stolen data to intimidate and exploit. Wilson's actions were exposed after multiple victims reported being harassed and extorted online. Investigators traced his activities through digital evidence, ultimately leading to his arrest in 2014. Wilson's case highlighted the vulnerabilities of personal data online and the lengths to which cybercriminals can go to exploit it. During his trial, it was revealed that Wilson often selected victims based off their perceived influence or wealth, maximizing the impact of his extortion schemes. Convicted of multiple charges, he faced prison time and financial penalties, but the psychological damage inflicted on his victims were immeasurable. Some victims reported long-term impacts, including anxiety, loss of trust in digital platforms, and significant financial burdens as a result of his actions. Wilson's crimes underscored the importance of robust cybersecurity measures, including two-factor authentication, data encryption, and regular monitoring of online accounts. William Francis Melchert Dinkel. William Francis Melchert Dinkel, a former nurse, used online suicide forums to prey on vulnerable individuals. Posing as a sympathetic confidant, he encouraged people to end their lives, often providing detailed instructions and methods to use. Melchert Dinkel exploited the anonymity of the internet to manipulate his victims, convincing them that he would support or even join them in their actions. Investigators linked him to at least 2 confirmed deaths, those of Nadia Kajuji and Mark Drybrow, though it is believed his influence extended to many more victims worldwide. Melchert Dinkel's crimes came to light after a grieving family member of one of his victims uncovered suspicious online communications. Authorities traced the messages back to him, revealing a pattern of targeting emotionally distressed individuals. Many of his victims were young adults struggling with mental health issues, and his calculated manipulation deepened their sense of hopelessness. In some cases, he convinced victims to livestream their actions, further highlighting his predatory and voyeuristic tendencies. His trial raised complex legal questions about the boundaries of free speech and the culpability of someone who encourages another's death. Convicted of assisting suicide and sentenced to prison, Melchert Dinkel's actions sparked international outrage and led to legislative changes in some jurisdictions to address the online exploitation of vulnerable individuals. Hunter Moore. Hunter Moore, dubbed the most hated man on the internet, was the creator of IsAnyoneUp.com, a notorious revenge website. Launched in 2010, the site allowed users to upload explicit photos of others without their consent, often accompanied by personal details such as names, social media profiles, and addresses. Moore refused to take down the content even when victims pleaded with him, reveling in the notoriety and harm his site caused. Many of the images were submitted by vengeful ex-partners, but some were obtained through hacking, further compounding the violation. Moore's actions devastated countless lives, leading to the harassment, job loss, and severe emotional distress for his victims. The site gained significant attention and outrage, eventually drawing the scrutiny of law enforcement. In 2012, Moore was arrested following an FBI investigation that uncovered his involvement in hacking schemes to acquire additional explicit content. Convicted in 2015, Moore was sentenced to prison and ordered to pay restitution to his victims. His brazen attitude and public defense of his actions fueled a broader conversation about consent, privacy, and the accountability of digital platforms. Some victims described lifelong trauma resulting from the exposure, with many struggling to regain control over their online identities. Moore's infamy highlights the dark side of internet culture and the urgent need for accountability and regulation in digital spaces. His downfall ultimately paved the way for ongoing efforts to protect individuals from online exploitation and to hold websites accountable for the harm they facilitate. Eric Yoin Marquez. Eric Yoin Marquez, known as the dark web's child king, operated Freedom Hosting, one of the largest hosting services for dark web content. Marquez provided infrastructure that allowed users to anonymously share and access vast amounts of illegal material, including child exploitation content. Freedom Hosting became synonymous with some of the darkest corners of the internet, as it hosted forums and sites dedicated to disturbing exploitative material. Marquez profited from the anonymity provided by the Tor network, enabling his clients to upload and download illegal content without fear of detection. Marquez's activities were uncovered in a joint operation between the FBI and the international law enforcement agencies, which identified him as the mastermind behind Freedom Hosting. Arrested in Ireland in 2013, Marquez faced extradition to the United States, where he was charged with facilitating the distribution of millions of explicit images. Investigators described his platform as a hub of evil, connecting thousands of users involved in illegal activities. Marquez's operation exposed significant gaps in international cybercrime laws, prompting renewed efforts to develop stronger policies to combat the dark web. Sentenced to 27 years in prison, Marquez's downfall underscored the importance of international cooperation in combating online exploitation. His case highlighted the sophisticated techniques used to mask illegal activities on the dark web and the challenges law enforcement faces in dismantling such networks. It also emphasized the need for advanced technological tools to detect and dismantle similar operations, as well as global partnerships to protect victims and prosecute offenders. Today, Marquez's case is seen as a landmark in the fight against dark web crimes, inspiring continued innovation and vigilance in the ongoing battle to prevent the abuse of digital platforms for heinous purposes. Moving on to Tier 5, the most obscure and disturbing. John Edward Robinson, or the Internet Slave Master. John Edward Robinson, often referred to as the Internet Slave Master, was one of the first known serial killers to exploit the anonymity of the internet to lure his victims. In the mid-1990s, Robinson frequented online BDSM chat rooms, posing as a dominance-seeking submissive partners. He used his charm and manipulative tactics to convince women to meet him in person, promising them jobs or romantic relationships. Once under his control, Robinson exploited, assaulted, and, in several cases, murdered his victims. His use of fake employment offers and forged documents allowed him to deceive his victims to further cover his tracks. Robinson's crimes came to light in 2000, when a search of his Kansas property uncovered the remains of 2 women inside chemical drums. Further investigations linked him to multiple disappearances spanning decades, with some victims found buried in a storage unit he owned across state lines. His methodical approach to both luring and disposing of his victims painted a chilling picture of a predator exploiting digital platforms to extend his reach. Emails and chat room logs provided crucial evidence of his manipulative tactics, as Robinson crafted detailed backstories to ensnare his victims. He often portrayed himself as a benevolent figure, offering financial support or career opportunities, only to turn violently abusive once he had isolated his targets. Robinson was eventually convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death, but his case continues to reverberate as one of the earliest instances of the internet being weaponized by a serial killer. It highlighted the inherent dangers of online anonymity and the importance of exercising caution when engaging with strangers in virtual spaces. Today, Robinson remains on death row, his case serving as a grim reminder of how technology, when misused, can enable the darkest of human impulses. Jason Christopher Hughes, or Dead Melix. Jason Christopher Hughes, known online as Dead Melix, exploited the dark web and online forums to groom and exploit victims, leveraging his technical expertise to further his crimes. Operating under various aliases, Hughes targeted vulnerable individuals, particularly teenagers, by infiltrating gaming platforms, social media networks, and chat rooms. Using a combination of charm and intimidation, Hughes manipulated his victims into sharing sensitive personal information and explicit material, which he then used to blackmail them into further compliance. Hughes' predatory behavior extended beyond coercion. He actively engaged in creating and distributing exploitative content on dark web platforms, earning him notoriety among underground communities. His ability to conceal his activities using encrypted communications and hidden accounts made him a significant threat and a challenge for authorities to track. The breakthrough came when a coordinated effort by multiple law enforcement agencies traced his activities to a series of encrypted servers. Victims who bravely came forward provided additional evidence that ultimately led to his arrest. Investigators uncovered a trove of illicit material, demonstrating the scale of Hughes' exploitation and his calculated methods for avoiding detection. Hughes faced numerous charges, including possession and distribution of illicit materials, online harassment, and exploitation of minors. Sentenced to a lengthy prison term, his case underscored the persistent danger posed by predators in digital spaces and the critical need for education on recognizing and responding to grooming behavior. Hughes' actions revealed the ease with which technological anonymity can be exploited for harm and prompted discussions about improving safety protocols on gaming and social platforms. David Kallick. David Kallick shocked the internet in 2014 when he posted graphic photos of his murdered girlfriend, Amber Lynn Copeland, on 4chan. Alongside the images, Kallick included a chilling message admitting to the crime and taunting viewers by stating that the police would find him soon. The post, titled with an air of nonchalance, quickly went viral, with users debating its authenticity while authorities scrambled to respond. Meanwhile, Copeland's body was discovered in their shared Washington home, confirming the horrific truth. Kallick's brazen use of the internet to publicize his crime and mock law enforcement demonstrated a disturbing blend of digital narcissism and real-world violence. Kallick's online confession provided investigators with invaluable evidence, leading to a multi-state manhunt that ended with his apprehension after a high-speed chase in Oregon. During his trial, Kallick expressed little remorse, claiming he acted in a fit of rage fueled by personal frustrations. He was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 82 years in prison. The case underscored the disturbing potential of social media to amplify and broadcast violent crimes, creating a perverse spectacle for online audiences. Kallick's decision to post the images and confession online suggested a desire for notoriety, raising broader concerns about the role of internet platforms in enabling the dissemination of harmful content. Bashid McLean. Bashid McLean horrified the public in 2013 when he uploaded graphic photos of his murdered mother, Tanya Bird, to social media. McLean, who had a history of mental illness and strained familial relationships, killed Bird in their New York apartment before dismembering her body. He then posed with the remains in a series of selfies, sharing the disturbing images online. The posts, which quickly circulated across platforms, shocked and traumatized those who encountered them. The viral nature of the content prompted calls for stricter controls on the sharing of violent imagery. The gruesome discovery of Bird's dismembered remains in garbage bags near the home confirmed the severity of McLean's crime. Arrested shortly after, McLean admitted to the murder, citing long-standing conflicts with his mother as a motive. During his trial, details emerged about McLean's fascination with gore and his apparent desire for infamy, as evidenced by his decision to share the images publicly. Convicted of second-degree murder, McLean was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. McLean's mental health history was a focal point during his trial, raising questions about the intersection of untreated psychological conditions and violent behavior. McLean's actions highlighted the darker aspects of social media, where shocking and graphic content can spread rapidly, desensitizing viewers and causing widespread harm. His case also underscored the need for better mechanisms to prevent the circulation of harmful material and to hold platforms accountable for moderating such content.